And we're underway now. The sprint off the lines. The youngsters really do open up the gas very, very early. Just looks like he's got the measure of this course today. He spent so long today warming up. I watched him. Crowd are loving this.
Yeah, I was like COVID hit. I was getting Cyclocross for a little bit. Finally got the It says posted at like 10 o'clock. My back. Oh really? Yeah, I was wondering why you were.
I got to do the beans and barley cyclocross race. I think it was the first cyclocross race I've been in, and I think the first cyclocross race that any of these cyclocrossers had seen an adaptive bike at. So I was in the men's novice field, and they started me right at the very back, because they had no idea what to expect. And I ended up, there was a hill right off the hop, so I held back a bit so that I could take a run at it. I wasn't sure what my speed was going to be like, what my pace would be like compared to other cyclists. So I didn't really mind being at the back because mentally I still had some anxiety that I would be in the way, and that it was okay for me to just trail for a bit and figure it out. But once I got up that first hill, I was right in it with the back of that pack. And if you're not familiar with a cyclocross race, it's basically like a giant lineup at the bank or at a movie theater. It's just tons of tape and turn after turn after turn. And really the skill is about the acceleration, deceleration, turning, and repeat over and over again. And so this was a great way to determine whether the Bowhead RX that we had come up with was really equal to a bike in the way that you rode it, like in its pace, if you will. But within the first lap, I was definitely in a groove and realized that I was at the same pace. I'd come into the corners at the same speed, I'd round the corners at the same speed, and I'd come out of them. And it's fair to call me a novice. I'd never done a cyclocross race in my life, and this was only a couple months into the RX even existing. So still in some ways a novice at riding it. So for this race to be at the same pace of a cyclist, I put it in turbo mode, and that's where it stays. And my heart rate was in the red zone most of that race. I thought I was going to die. So turbo just meant that I was competitive with them. I could bump it down and I could bump it down again, but it wouldn't change the exercise I got. It would just change my overall speed to be lower. This course is actually right close to where I live, literally 200 yards away, and they've been running this beans and barley cyclocross for I think over a decade now. And so I've always gone over the bridge and watched it and watched people compete, because cyclocross is a super interesting race to watch. And it never occurred to me as we were building the RX that this would be a thing. I just saw it. I saw it come up online that it was happening, and I was like to my wife, I was like, "Do you think I can do that race?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't see why not." So I entered. I emailed the race organizer and was really clear about what I was riding and what I was doing, and they were super supportive. I even went out the day before and they're like, "We can make these corners wider, we can do this, do that." And I rode the course and I was like, "No, it's good, it's perfect." There was other than the ride around on the boards that you had to jump over, there was zero altered for me for that race. And the field of riders that I was in, they had there was no instructions about how to ride with me or anything. So it was a very organic, very natural, very fun race. It'll definitely be something that I do again and that I seek out. I think we have, with the RX coming online and being distributed sort of around the world to the people that have pre-ordered them, and then as more get out there, I think we'll definitely encourage people to contact their local cyclocross race organizer and see how they can fit into the field, because it was probably the most fun I've had racing maybe ever. Just that the concept of the cyclocross race with the corner after corner, and it's unrelenting in how difficult it is if you try hard. Like, you never get into a groove, you never get on a long stretch of road, or if you hit the slight downhill, then 40 yards later you've got an uphill. I had lamented the fact that I had never done one on a bike like that, because I didn't ever think that it would be a possibility for me. It's not that I was sitting there all upset, but I was like, man, I wish when I rode a bike, I wish I'd done a cyclocross race. It looks like so much fun. And it never occurred to me that I would have that opportunity, because we had the Bowhead Reach, and people are like, you should do it in that. And I'm like, well, it's not really genuine to do it in the Reach. It's full electric. It would be pretty fun, but it's not that kind of race. Whereas once the RX was made, it was like, hey, I think this could do the cyclocross race, and sure enough, it did. And it wasn't just awesome because I got to do the cyclocross race, but it really made me feel confident that I could enter a cross-country mountain bike race. That being in such a tight pack, accelerating, decelerating, going downhill, uphill, corner, side slope, corner, uphill, downhill, that I was the same pace as the other cyclists. So if I had any anxiety to do a cross-country mountain bike race before because I wasn't the right pace and I would hold people up, that's definitely gone now. I feel really confident and excited to maybe enter some cross-country mountain bike races, and even at this year's Sea Otter gravel race, which has a lot of cross-country riding in it. I think I'll take off a lot faster knowing that I can ride with the faster people without being in their way, and maybe they'll be in my way. I think one thing to note is that the Bowhead RX is a pedal assist bike using the Bosch CX power unit. So what that means is that for every crank of mine in turbo mode, which is where I left it, it multiplies that by 3. So, which is actually pretty on par with if you take the wattage that your legs produce versus the wattage your arms produce. It's about a quarter, and then you've got the RX is a much heavier bike than the 22-pound cyclocross bikes they were riding. So you've got the boost of the motor, but it only multiplies what you're putting in. So if you put in 10 watts, you only get 40 watts out. So it's not free. It's not a throttle by any means. So to keep up with those people, you have to maximize the wattage you're putting in. But luckily it amplifies the speed you're going so that you're in that pack. So it really is the great equalizer. I think I did well over 100 turns, maybe 200 and something turns within that race. So you're just like, you're wrestling that bike around and around. And the more efficient and stronger your whatever stabilizer muscles you have are, then the more you can use the power in your arms. It was really, from like a fitness and sport standpoint, it was a really interesting puzzle to crack and to be excited about the future of, now that I know what's involved, like how can I get out of the novice field and into the open men field, and then beyond that. obviously the most exciting being, how can I get there to be 5, 10, 20, 50 hand cyclists doing these races and really test your mettle against people in your own field and your own class. Yeah, it was a really welcoming race as far as once I got into it and people could see me ride and I wasn't in the way and I was competitive with them. I worked my way. I think I started at the back with 33 or 36 people, and I ended up working my way to 17th place. So I worked my way through the field a bit, and I got pretty even with a younger kid who was, I'm gonna guess he was about 15 years old, and we were together for 2 or 3 laps back and forth, and I thought I had him at one point, but it turns out it wasn't the bell lap. It was just some guy in the crowd rang a bell, so I used up all my old man strength, and it turns out there was one more lap to go, and the 15-year-old had a little more left in the tank. But it was great. I hadn't had a race like that with someone in a long time, where it was back and forth, and I was encouraging him, he was encouraging me. It was pretty, but both of us wanted to win. It was a nice race.
Last push.
You going nationals?
That was the first one. Thanks.
Yeah, well, so I struggled on some of the corners. It just wouldn't grip in.
Hey, buddy. Careful, I'm gonna fall over.
Hey, sir, Carl, you were about 15 seconds back from lapping me.
I got a motor too. That's all I have.
Yo, it ain't easy.
No. Oh god. It's just a wrestling match. Whew.
I love it.
Thanks for watching me.
Good job.
I like being cheered on. Yes.
Doesn't seem like it was tough for you. 2 minutes.
Christian, we have a new world record holder in the adaptive cycle for the beans and barley for Christian Big. So come on up, Christian Big.
Wiped out. I lost my chain. I was sitting on the side, like trying to get my chain back out for like a minute.
Look at that.
All right. Let's all give.
Click here to subscribe or watch our latest video.